Which operating system patches close the biggest number of vulnerabilities? Find out on today's Tanium Tech Talk. Welcome back to Tanium Tech Talks. I'm your host, Ashley McGlone, and Tanium is the first platform to do full vulnerability management lifecycle. We can scan for the vulnerabilities and then patch them, and all with one agent. And this has been our story for many years now, but it keeps getting better. I mean, think about this for a second, okay? So over here are all these vulnerabilities in the environment. And then over here are all these patches to fix those vulnerabilities. So how can we know which patches make the most impact on reducing our vulnerabilities? Well, I'm glad you asked. So we've got a new guest expert on the show today to explain this and more. And I don't know why it's taken this long to get her on the show. She's a real Tanium rock star. Margie, please introduce yourself for our audience.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Margie Sills, and I'm the Risk and Compliance Domain Architect, and I've been here for over 7 years now. So I'm having a great time, and I'm excited to finally be here. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah, 7 years. It's about time. Well, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the show. And so I've got a question that I think is kind of obvious that I just want to ask straight out of the gate here. So I know we've got customers in different places using different modules of Tanium, but I'm just thinking, all right, if we're already patching everything, why do we need a mapping to say these vulnerabilities go to these patches if we just patch everything anyway? And that may or may not be the case for all of our customers. So I'm curious, what's the use case that we're solving?
So that is a really good question. And you're right. A lot of times we do say, hey, go patch everything. But that's rarely actually the case. A lot of times customers have a more complicated approach to their patching cycle. And so while we say, yes, you absolutely need to go patch everything, seldom does it actually look like that in practice. We also have different areas of their environment that we're patching as well, and different types of patches that are going out. So they've got their own sets of priorities that are being applied to how they're going about patching their environment. And so while you would think this shouldn't be necessary at all, everything's being patched, it's actually a huge need in our customer environments and across the industry right now.
So what I hear you saying is there could be patching based on severity that's gradiated across the environment. It could be by geography or business unit, different policies. And even though we say patch all the things, that's not the reality. Wow. So what did we build here then to help with that situation?
Yeah, so what we built, and I'll give you the short version first, is a very easy pivot from find to fix through that vulnerability management workflow. If it's a finding and Tanium can patch it, we want to make that very, very easy for you, knowing that you already have a really great patch program in place. And so these are the things that are kind of falling through the cracks. And so, yeah, we've built a way for you to see patch remediations, for your vulnerabilities here in the place where we're actually looking for those vulnerabilities and surfacing the findings.
So this has already been out for a little bit. What have you heard from customers that have started to look at this view and comply now?
Several different things, but the first thing is that this is very unique. This is very unique because seldom do you have any place where you can see vulnerabilities from the perspective of what did we scan for, in the same place where you can see what we can do about it and then actually go do something. This has been a very fragmented workflow, and vulnerability management historically has spoken to just the scanning side of the house and prioritization as well. But the remediation side has really kind of lived outside of that workflow. And it's just kind of been the expectation for a long time. And so customers are really excited to see that for the first time, they can give their ops teams a view into the vulnerability findings in a way where it doesn't start an argument and they can actually start the path to remediation. And they can do it in a very fast, effective way.
Doesn't start an argument remains to be seen, but let's hope so. Yeah. And that you said, the term we use in the industry, vulnerability management, has always made me scratch my head because it's like, we're not really managing anything. We're just kind of showing you what's out there. But this really is management now, full end to end. Here's the problem. Let's, like you said, find it and fix it. Why don't you just go ahead and dive in and show us?
So I am here in Tanium, of course. I am in our comply capability, which is how we've always looked for vulnerability findings, compliance as well. But here in this view, this is where we have always offered the ability to come in, and I'm going to flip over for just a moment to show that we've always given you your vulnerability findings here through comply. It's just a matter of now being able to take this information and give it over to the people who are responsible for remediating it. And so here I have the remediation visibility available in our comply tool. And I have all of my filters have persisted that I would need to go through and do this. If you've used Tanium before, you know we always give you ways to shape what you're looking at. So we have that here. And then down below, there's two primary ways that I can look at the remediation options. I've got my patch view, which is defaulted. That is, of course, our most popular. And what you see here is instead of seeing CVE IDs, I am looking at different patches. And I'm looking at the top 5 unscheduled patches that would have the greatest effect in my environment right now. And then down below, I've got a much bigger kind of result table, 147 to be clear, unscheduled patches that would be effective in my environment. And then I have the actionable findings view. And what this is it's giving you that CVE lens here in the remediations workbench. And so what this is it's giving me that CVE with that patch information right next to it. And so sometimes this is really helpful to kind of have this view on what the actionable findings are versus the patches themselves.
If I'm kind of following this correctly, we've got all the patch information already in Tanium, if as long as you're managing patches with Tanium. So we've got that, and now we've got all the scan data, and that CVE scan data maps to the specific patches that would resolve that CVE. And so it's really just kind of joining those two sets of data to create this view. So I'm guessing if there's actionable findings, there'd be unactionable findings, which would maybe be like, I don't know, third-party apps that aren't in the scope of patch. What would be unactionable?
Yeah, so well, one, I'd like to go back to what you just said, because that's a great way to look at this, is we absolutely have the complied information. We have that scan information, and yes, we absolutely have the patching information as well. This is the view to show you what's in that gap. And so you're right. By actionable findings, we're saying that these are things that you can take action with Tanium and remediate. The things that don't fall in this category is, of course, your third-party applications. Even though we do have full application management, that is not here in this view right now. And then there's always those weird ones that don't fall under OS patching or third-party applications that come up as well. And the other thing to notice here is we are specifically calling out unscheduled patches. And so that is what we're surfacing here. So this is not all of the vulnerability findings that Tanium has found. This is specifically the findings that we have that are actionable through patch operations.
That's interesting. This unscheduled patches. So even if we have patches scheduled to go out, maybe we take a look at this as a reality check. It's like, okay, did we miss something here in our current scheduled deployment? Maybe.
Definitely a way to see, yeah, did we miss something in our configuration? But also, patching is not as neat and simple as we like to think that it is. There's always out of band patches when it comes to the Linux side of the house. It's very different. It's not as predictable. And so there's always going to be things that are these one-off cases. And so it helps to know that we have a place where we can come in and see what those things are that weren't caught on our normal operations.
So I've got Windows patch data. I've got kind of the Tanium comply, or Windows or Linux for that matter. I guess we should state that this is Windows or Linux. Any Mac coming into play
Nope,
here?
this is Windows and Linux right now only. And so this is not covering our Mac, AIX, or Solaris at this time.
Okay. And what if I've got patches on a block list that I'm never planning to deploy? Are those going to show up here?
No, no. So we are absolutely looking at your full patch information. So that's one of the requirements actually, is you have to have patch fully running. You also have to have comply fully running so that both of those capabilities can inform each other. And that's also why we have the ability from this view to move into patching, to continue to put into place the things you need to configure effective patching. So the things like you're talking about, what are the block lists we need to honor and things of that nature. So of the configuration items that would be relevant are absolutely accessible and honored through this approach of managing your vulnerabilities.
And that kind of leads us to my next question then. So, if I've got a list of these vulnerabilities here and I decide, okay, I need to do like an out of band thing because all of a sudden I've got a really tall bar here that means I'm not in good shape, how do I then go from here, the report that shows me what's vulnerable, to actually going into patch to patch these?
Absolutely. So as you see, I've got my biggest offenders. We'll just pick on that first one. So I have a critical patch here. It's a cumulative update for 10, 22H2. I've got all my patch information, and up here, after, of course, I've looked through this and considered it, I have my patch actions, and I can immediately pivot over to what I need to do to remediate this. So you've got that block list option like you were talking about. I can add this to a patch list if I have one already created. Yeah, so we have the ability to pivot over into whichever patch action that we need to take care of this. So like you pointed out, we do sometimes have to move towards a block list approach, but we also have the ability to add it to an existing patch list, or we can create a patch list fresh starting from this point if we need to.
Almost like a shopping cart. I could just add to cart, add to this patch to my cart because we're gonna check this out and across the environment. I like that.
Absolutely. And down below, very helpful, you can see the patch list that include this patch. Again, we are looking at the unscheduled patches, but because we have the patch information accessible here through Comply Remediations, this is also a place where that operations team can come in and kind of see what's going on in the things that they normally work with to kind of maybe try to figure out why did this one get missed somehow.
Very good. So I can add those to the patch list here, create a new patch list, and so then the rest of it's just normal patch workflow after that. Just pop over to the patch module and go from there.
Absolutely. So several things from there. So the first thing is in practice, a lot of times you're not just going to come in here and put things out full blast. The same way that patching goes through test cycles, we have that same approach here. We expect you to go through that. And so we can always come back through our remediations. We can always find the assessment that found that finding so that we can launch an on-demand scan so that we can verify that, yes, absolutely, that patch remediated that finding for us. So that would probably be somewhere in that first approach to remediating the vulnerability at scale. But yeah, then you're kind of back to normal operations. You can always watch for it to drop out of your vulnerability findings from this view. But coming back to the remediations view, Tanium is absolutely a continuous monitoring tool. And so absolutely, you can just kind of set it, know that it's being remediated after walking through your kind of test process with that. And then you can come back here and kind of see, okay, what do I need to attack next?
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that because that's kind of the life cycle, right? Is okay, we see the need, we patch the need, but then we need to validate that it was successful. So what you're saying is I may have compliance scans just already scheduled in the environment, and those are going to automatically update, or I can do that on demand scan, it sounds like.
Absolutely right. And so you have continuous monitoring that's going to, no matter what, continue to assess. And then you have the ability to make things, again, super fast and streamlined. You can always come in and execute an on-demand scan and verify that that remediation took place as you expected it to.
So if I'm an on-prem customer, I'm probably going to get this in the next semi-annual release. If I'm cloud, I should already have it. Is there anything I need to do to configure or set this up, or does it just kind of work out of the box?
So it absolutely works out of the box as long as you've got comply and patch, both covering the portion of the estate where you want to see this work. Something to keep in mind with that is, first of all, we do have role-based access control. It is extensive in Tanium, and this is one of the first times you're going to have your operations team coming in with access, direct access to a tool that's scanning your environment that traditionally lived with your security team. And so we do need to consider the RBAC and what's appropriate for your organization so that they can come in and use this view of remediations.
You said the magic word. You said RBAC. Yeah, we've done a lot of episodes on RBAC, and you can go check those in the playlist here on YouTube. But so what you're saying is, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. We don't have to get into configuring it, but what are some examples of things that I would want to scope out with RBAC? Maybe just the which machines I can see and comply, or is this around the compliance data? What are we RBACing in the interface?
Absolutely. So with RBAC, we're always going to think about what portion of the estate we want to have access to. So that's the first thing. So absolutely on both sides, being sure we do have access to the right computers that we're trying to get a view on. On the comply side, our RBAC is really broken down in several ways to make sure that those who need to see the findings cannot just walk in and configure a new assessment. So you've got kind of your tool owners in there that are going to maintain ownership. And by bringing the ops team in, we don't want them to overstep in any way. And so we're giving them the ability to kind of read the findings and be able to take action through this remediations view. And then on the patch side as well, I mean, theoretically, those patch teams already have access to patch, and so there would be no change there. But it is something to consider if you're bringing in a team that doesn't typically remediate. These functions don't work unless you have permissions in patch that would allow you to do the same type of action there.
That makes a lot of sense. So, as you've been interacting with customers, are there any frequently asked questions that tend to come up with this new capability?
Yeah, so several of them actually. The first thing to your point is how do I configure this? What do I do with it? A lot of times for our existing customers, they come in, they see this remediations view, and the security team doesn't really know what to do with it. So the first question is, what is this for? And so again, that's kind of why we're having this conversation today is to build that information and that knowledge. So how do we use it? Who needs access to it is definitely one of the first questions that we get asked. The next question we get asked because they get so excited that they can handle the OS patching is, okay, well, what about everything else, right? And so while this is definitely not a roadmap conversation, I'll just say that Tanium obviously has a very good understanding of the vulnerability management space. And we're definitely planning to continue to make things more efficient and streamlined for our customers. So this right now is definitely going to stand around our OS patching. But to be very, clear on that, OS patching is the majority bulk of the vulnerabilities, especially the known CVEs that we're seeing come across the environment in the first place. So even without having all those other things in place yet, we definitely see this moving our customers to definitely drive down that mean time to remediate, to definitely reduce risk, streamline their process, and making something that should have been easy by now a whole lot easier for them to get to.
I can really see some value in this as over the years of doing this show, I remember one particular customer that they already had like high 90s on their patching compliance, and they were looking like for fractions of percentages, anything they could do to drive that compliance percentage up. And so I could see maybe this view helping folks who are really, really maniacal about patching every last possible thing, and you could maybe come in here as a reality check to say, okay, what did we miss?
Absolutely. We have customers who are extremely mature in their patching process, extremely mature in just operations overall. And this is really eye-opening for a lot of them because they do think they've got everything kind of covered. And once you get to a certain expected threshold on your patch compliance, you kind of go, yeah, okay, we're good. And so this is always eye-opening for those teams. And then on the other side, for the customers that are not as mature when Tanium shows up, once we help them get that automated patching in place, which is just, it's magic for them, right? This is the view that they can come back to so that they can put their hands on the tool and say, okay, now what else do I need to do to continue to mature? So really valuable regardless of the size and maturity of the customer.
Well, I think that about wraps us up here. This has been really good, Margie. Anything else you'd like to make sure people take away before we close?
I don't think so. I think we've covered pretty much all of it. This is definitely, we've been talking about this. Tanium's been talking about the fact that we offer full vulnerability management for a long time. We have been in the real-time visibility and control space for a long time. And now that we're building in these pivot points within the platform to just make it easier for customers, we're really hoping that it's helping our customers reach that streamlined, efficient process that they're going after in the first place. So I'm super excited about our customers finally getting access to this.
Well, Margie, thanks for joining us on the show today. And for those of you watching, whether that's at home or in the office, we have resources, as always, here in the show notes below on YouTube. There's a couple links for you. There's a link to our docs on this capability around comply. There's also a link to a resource center article. And if you just go out to help.tanium.com and search for remediation of visibility, you'll find the article that explains this a little bit more. So we're all about here how to help you knock out the largest amount of risk with the least amount of effort. And this view, like we just talked about, is a great way to just say, are you sure you got everything that you thought you got in that patching, right? So another fantastic delivery with remediation visibility here from Tanium. So thank you for joining us. Until next time, go Tanium.